Welcome. Today we're diving into a story of some serious whiplash. It's a journey that kicks off with this incredible, mind-bending glimpse of divine glory on a mountaintop, and then immediately plunges right into the messy, demanding, and often confusing reality of life down on the road. We're talking about incredible highs and some really challenging lows, all packed into one short stretch. So this whole story really hinges on this one massive contrast. On one side, you have this sacred, transcendent experience totally isolated on a mountain. And on the other, literally the next day, you have the chaotic, desperate reality of human need waiting for them down in the valley. And it's this tension, this back and forth between the divine and the human, that really drives everything that's about to happen. Okay, so let's set the scene. The story starts with Jesus taking his inner circle. We're talking Peter, John, and James, and getting them away from everybody else. He leads them up a mountain, and the reason he gives is pretty simple, to pray. But what actually happens up there? Well, it is anything but simple. So why a mountain? You've got to remember, in these ancient stories, mountains are almost always where stuff goes down. They're these places of divine encounter, where it feels like heaven and earth are touching. So choosing a mountain isn't random at all. It's a place for a revelation, far away from the noise of everyday life. And get this, the trigger for this whole crazy event is prayer. The text literally says, as he was praying, the transformation started. So this isn't some big performance for a crowd. It's this quiet, intimate moment that suddenly explodes into a full-blown revelation for the disciples who are with him. And wow, what a revelation it is. I mean, his face actually changes and his clothes become dazzling white, described as being as bright as a flash of lightning. This is a vision of pure, unfiltered glory, something totally beyond what a person could ever expect to see. And then, as if that weren't enough, two of the heaviest hitters from the Hebrew scriptures just appear. You've got Moses, who represents the law, and Elijah, who stands for the prophets. And listen to what they're talking about. They're discussing his departure, which is a direct reference to the trip to Jerusalem this whole story is about. See, this isn't just a random chat. It's showing that the entire story of their faith has been pointing to this moment. And here's the climax on the mountain. A cloud rolls in, another classic symbol of God's presence, and this voice delivers a totally unambiguous message. It confirms exactly who Jesus is and says, point blank, listen to him. And then, poof, just as fast as it all started, it's over. Jesus is standing there alone, and the disciples are just left in total, stunned silence. So you have that incredible peak experience. And then the story just takes a hard right turn. The very next day, they come down off the mountain, and the contrast could not be more jarring. They walk straight from this perfect vision of divine order into a scene of complete and utter human chaos. Right away, a man from the crowd runs up and makes this heartbreaking plea. You can just feel the agony in his words, right? His only kid is being tormented by this awful condition, and this father is at the absolute end of his rope. He even says he already asked the other disciples for help, but they couldn't do anything. So let's just break down how this miracle unfolds. You've got the desperate plea, and then this really important detail. The disciples fail. Now think about that for a second. These are the same guys who just witnessed the transfiguration, and down here, they are completely powerless. It takes Jesus himself to step in, rebuke the spirit, heal the boy, and hand him back to his father, leaving everyone in the crowd just amazed. And this just hammers home that central tension again. Right at the very moment the crowd is at peak amazement over his power, Jesus tries to pull his disciples back to a much tougher reality. He warns them about his own suffering that's coming. But the text tells us the meaning was hidden from them. They couldn't get it. You know, this failure to understand what Jesus is really all about leads directly into the very next scene. I mean, you think after seeing divine glory and a massive miracle, the disciples will be thinking about, well, that. But instead, their minds drift from the divine to something much, much more worldly, their own status. So let's just pause on that for a second. They've seen his glory. They've seen his power to heal. What's the immediate follow-up for them? What's the topic of conversation they have in private? Unbelievably, they started arguing about which one of them was the greatest. It just shows this massive disconnect between the incredible reality they're witnessing and the same old worldly ambitions they are still hanging on to. Now, Jesus knows what they're arguing about, and he tackles it head on. You see, their idea of greatness was all about climbing a ladder. It was about status, power, and getting recognized. But Jesus just completely flips that script. He grabs a little child,
someone with literally zero status in that society, and puts them right in the middle as the model for true greatness. For him, greatness is all about humility and serving the most vulnerable among you.
And this is the punchline of his whole lesson. It's a total redefinition of what power and importance even mean. And it's a direct shot at their self-serving argument. It's not about climbing to the top, it's about being willing to stoop down and serve.
Okay, so now the whole story takes a huge, decisive turn. A new destination is officially set, and the focus is now squarely on the journey itself. And this isn't just about changing locations on a map. This is the start of the final, fateful path.
The wording here is so important. He resolutely sets out. That means there's a serious, determined, unwavering focus in this decision. And right away, that resolve gets tested. They get rejected by a Samaritan village for no other reason than the fact that their destination is Jerusalem, which was a rival center of worship.
And just look at this reaction from the disciples, James and John. Their first impulse is to respond to rejection with overwhelming, fiery destruction from the sky. It is yet another total misunderstanding of the kind of power they've been seeing. They want to use it for revenge. And Jesus' response is swift and it is clear. No. He rebukes them. His mission is not about calling down fire.
So, as they keep traveling down this road, the theme of what it actually means to follow Jesus gets sharper and sharper. 3 different people come up to him, and his answers to them are frankly shocking and totally uncompromising. They revealed the true cost of making this journey.
This table really lays out just how stark these conversations are. I mean, to the guy who eagerly volunteers, Jesus doesn't offer encouragement, he offers homelessness. To the man who has a totally legitimate family duty, burying his own father, Jesus gives this shocking command that puts the mission above literally everything else. And to the guy who's hesitating, who just wants to say a proper goodbye, Jesus gives this stern warning against even glancing backward. The message couldn't be clearer. There are no half measures here. The call is now, it is absolute, and it demands your total focus.
And that's really where this chapter leaves us. The story moves from the absolute glory on the mountain to the gritty, tough reality of the road. The call to follow is clear, but man, so is the cost. It demands you let go of ambition, of comfort, and even of your most basic obligations. And it forces us to end with this really provocative question. What does it actually take to put your hand to the plow and not look back?